everybody, Cinema Sickness here with the weekly reviews, where we take a look at every single movie I watched this week, and I'll give you my quick thoughts on it. So let's take a look at what I watched. The first title I checked out was The Raid Redemption. Going into this movie, I was expecting a kick-ass film because I've heard nothing but absolutely fantastic things about this film since it came out, and by no means was I let down. From start to finish, this movie literally kicks ass. It is one giant brawl from the very beginning to the very end, and it is a fantastic story. It's all about a bunch of cops who end up doing this raid on an apartment complex. We think they're just going in for, typical reasons, cops trying to stop this crime lord, but we end up finding out there's actually some more kind of twisted and selfish reasons for them to be going into this building. I won't spoil it for you, but it is a great, well-told story. It is more or less just a popcorn film, something for action junkies to check out. It has some fantastic martial arts in it. If you're a fan of martial arts films, this is definitely one to check out. The front is a little bit misleading, though. It says, one ruthless crime lord, 20 elite cops. That part's true. Then it says, 30 floors of hell. Technically, it's only 15 floors, but then the more I started thinking about it, maybe they meant 15 up and 15 down, although some might only say that's actually 29 floors because you're kind of counting the top floor twice, but that's nitpicking. Just a fantastic, fantastic film. Again, about these cops trying to survive this raid on this apartment complex. They got to make it all the way up to the top. They got to get the boss. But in the meantime, they're just getting their asses handed to them by all the other bad guys within this whole complex. It's just such a great, great movie. Just fun from start to finish, and one I would highly, highly recommend for action junkies or just fans of great martial arts. Now, there is one thing that threw me off a little bit, and that's the fact that this is an Indonesian film. I didn't know that, not until the subtitles popped up. I've seen at least a dozen reviews on this film, and not a single one of them mentioned that it's a foreign film, which I find kind of amusing. So as soon as the subtitles popped up, I was a bit thrown. I was not expecting that. But it certainly didn't take away from it. I had nothing wrong with reading subtitles. It does come with a dubbed English track, but I think we all know it's always better to watch it with subtitles. With its original audio track, it just makes for a much better film. I'd certainly recommend checking it out that way. But again, a fantastic film. If you're an action junkie, if you're a martial arts fan, this is certainly one to add to your collection. The second title I watched this week was Kiss of the Spider-Woman. I really expected more out of this film since when I picked it up, I got it for dirt cheap on Amazon, brand new. And a lot of people were talking about the movie when it showed up for cheap on Amazon, saying it was great, they wanted to get themselves a copy. And it is a blind buy. It's a movie I had never even heard of until I picked it up a few months back. So I figured since everybody was saying it was great, it was dirt cheap, I'd buy a copy of it. And like I said, I was really expecting more from all the recommendations I was getting. And I just thought it was very, again, mediocre. It's all about two guys in a prison, one's gay, and he ends up sort of falling in love with his cellmate, and you realize that he's actually kind of in cahoots with the people who run the prison to try and get some information out of him, because he's sort of, I guess you could say kind of a terrorist, kind of like a political terrorist. So he's trying to get information out of him to get back to the people who run the prison. It's just this whole kind of just bland story. I just wasn't thrilled with it. Didn't think it really went anywhere, even in the end when we're left with our one main character, and he's kind of, since he fell in love with his cellmate, he wants to help him out once he gets out of prison, and even that part just sort of fell flat for me. I just wasn't thrilled with the story, found it kind of bland, kind of mediocre. It does have some artsy parts. I don't want to say this movie's artsy, it's really not, but it does have some artsy moments, and from that it does kind of come off like an artsy film, so I have nothing wrong with that. I like artsy films. I love them. I have some great ones within my collection, but all in all, I just wasn't thrilled to death with this movie. I just thought it was kind of bland, mediocre, just an okay story. So would I recommend this movie? If you are into artsy films, I would say sure, it's definitely one to check out. But really when it comes down to it, it is just mediocre. So I can't necessarily recommend it, but at the same time, it wasn't a bad story. It was okay, it kept me entertained, it kept my interest, just nothing I really want to sit down and watch again anytime soon. So as far as recommending it, if you really want to see it, you can get it for cheap, I guess pick it up. Otherwise, it's nothing you really need to see. The third title I watched this week was Civil War Journal. This here being a collection of episodes from the Civil War Journal, a fantastic series by the History Channel. There's not really too much to say about this. Again, it's just a great series by the History Channel about the Civil War. If that's your thing, it's worth checking out. The fourth title I watched this week was Son of Kong, this year being the 1933 sequel to the 1933 film King Kong. This movie was pretty much just rushed out right after King Kong to make some money off the success of King Kong, thus why it was released in the same exact year. It's a decent sequel. It's nothing amazing, it's nothing great, but if you are a fan of King Kong, it's fun to watch just to get some more somewhat Kong. This is about his, apparently, King Kong's son, which is a bit ridiculous. They come up with this kind of BS reason why they end up going back to Kong Island. It's pretty ridiculous, but it is fun. It is just a great movie. It's only an hour long, so it's certainly worth popping in and checking out. It's nothing special, but like I said, if you are a fan of King Kong, it is worth checking out just to get some more great stop-motion animation, just to get a little bit more of a Kong story. Unfortunately, though, I will spoil the ending of this a little bit. Son of Kong dies, and I'm watching and thinking, why do all the Kongs have to die? It's so sad. I mean, King Kong dies at the end of King Kong. Son of Kong dies in the end of Son of Kong. It's just a shame that these great apes all have to die, especially Son of Kong. He seems such like a much mellower King Kong. He's a lot more friendly, wants to help out the humans. He's just such a nicer Kong, and it's just a real shame to see him go in the end. It's actually a little ridiculous how he goes in the end. I love his hand sticking up out of the water and holding the human, helping him survive. It's pretty funny, but all in all, a decent movie. Again, it's nothing special, but if you're a fan of King Kong, it's certainly worth checking out. The fifth title I watched this week was Mighty Joe Young, another ape movie. It doesn't have anything to do with the actual King Kong movies, but another ape movie done with stop-motion animation, this time by Ray Harryhausen. That alone should mean this is a classic. I really enjoyed this story. It's all about this girl who gets a baby gorilla, ends up raising it, ends up becoming a full-blown gorilla, but she can control it because the gorilla was raised by her. He kind of sees her as a sort of a parental figure, and she can control the ape. Well, this big showman from New York ends up finding them and talks him into coming back to New York for this nightclub. He wants to put him on as a show. Well, things don't go so well. The ape gets, Mighty Joe Young gets really pissed off a lot since people are throwing things at him and treating him not so badly. They stick him in a cage at night. It's just not going so well. So Mighty Joe Young and his I guess you would say friend, trainer, parent figure, whatever you want to call her, they end up wanting to go back to Africa. They wanted to get out of here. They're not having it. Things just aren't going as they planned. Well, of course, the show owner wants to keep them there, but one of the things I liked about this movie is the show owner seems like a complete asshole during the whole film. You're not really rooting for him. You think he's the dick, he's the bad guy. But in the end, he actually redeems himself. He helps save Mighty Joe Young, because Mighty Joe Young ends up throwing a fit at one point, ripping down this nightclub, going just, for lack of a better term, ape shit. And the city wants to put him down. The cops are coming after him. They're going to kill him. They basically sentence him to death. But he helps Mighty Joe Young, the girl, and the guy love interest in the movie. They help them all escape back to Africa, and everything ends up working out well in the end. Mighty Joe Young lives. Yes, the ape actually lives at the end of the movie as opposed to dying like King Kong and Son of Kong. So I love that part. And all in all, just a good movie. And as I said, I really like how the guy who throughout the entire movie I think is the mean bad guy of the film ends up redeeming himself at the end, ends up being a good guy, realizing that he wasn't right, he was doing wrong, and he should have sent them back to Africa because things just aren't going so well. So all in all, a great movie, a fantastic story, and another one I would definitely recommend. And the sixth and final movie I watched this week was Season of the Witch. Going into this film, wasn't quite sure what to expect, as I had read a lot of really, really bad reviews, but I've also read a few good reviews as well, just unfortunately most were negative. So, like I said, wasn't sure I was going to enjoy this movie, but I actually ended up really liking it. It was a fun film. Though I see why it was definitely criticized a lot, it's just a film that doesn't really seem to go anywhere. It never really amounts to anything. It's sort of one of those films where after you watch it, you kind of go, okay, I saw that, and you just sort of forget about it. That is a good way to describe this film, kind of forgetful. But that's not to say it wasn't entertaining. It was. I enjoyed the film. It is definitely a popcorn movie, though. Has some fun action, some great kind of horror-ish scenes. It's definitely one of those sort of fantasy horror movies in the sense kind of like maybe Van Helsing or Brothers Grimm. That's another good way to describe it. Just Brothers Grimm and Van Helsing are much better movies than this. But if this movie would have came out around the same time period, it definitely would have fit in it. It sort of takes place in the whole medieval times, but it has a lot of sort of fantasy horror elements within it. It was a good watch. I thought Nicolas Cage did a good job. Ron Perlman did a good job as well. It was just a fun movie about some guys trying to transport a supposed witch who, I don't want to say I'm spoiling things here because you find out fairly early in the movie that she definitely is a witch. There's too many hints that she definitely is a witch. So, of course, they are transporting an actual witch to some monks, and we find out this whole big story about why she kind of tricked people into actually having her sent there because she wanted to destroy this book that can basically stop witches. Again, a decent story, just in the end it's nothing special. It doesn't really amount to anything, and it's just kind of, I don't want to say the story was bland because it was enjoyable. Like I said, it had some great action in it, some great moments in it, and it was a fun sort of fantasy horror action movie. But it just didn't amount to anything, and it just kind of left you with sort of an empty feeling at the end. But all in all, it was decent. I would say if you can pick this movie up for $5, which I did, you can get it for $5 right now at your local Walmart. For $5, it's certainly worth it. It's something I will watch again. This is definitely a movie I will check out again. Maybe not for a while. It's not something I want to watch right away again, but I could see myself definitely sitting down and checking this one out again. It's just a fun popcorn film, and all in all, I'd recommend it. So that's it, guys. It's all the movies I watched this week and my quick thoughts on them. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on my next weekly review. See ya.